Well, the Washington Post called this race one of the top 5 governor's races in the nation, and heading into today, the Republican primary, well, it was just too close to call. So, Mike, who wins tonight?
Well, that's a great question. We've got a barn burner in Kentucky because we have a nomination that's worth having. Over the past decades, the Republican Party has really been putting forward good candidates, and we've done that again today. We have 4 outstanding candidates, each of whom could get over 10%. I'm not sure we're going to know early who the winner is. We've got Mr. Bevin, a businessman from Louisville who's running with Tea Party backing. We've got Secretary of Agriculture James Comer, who's an established candidate in the state. We've got Hal Heiner, who ran for mayor of Louisville, narrowly losing that, who's mounted an effective campaign. And we've got our own former Supreme Court Justice from Pike County, Will T. Scott. Got a great lineup who will be going against the coronated candidate of the Democrat Party, Mr. Conway, who's currently the Attorney General. Too close to call at this point, Neil.
Well, we're going to be watching it through the night. Coleman, Jack Conway is the likely winner of the Democratic primary. The latest Bluegrass poll shows Conway defeating any Republican challenger in the fall. So who would Democrats rather face come November?
Neil, thanks for having me, and Mike, always good to see you. Look, I think Jack Conway, Attorney General Conway, is prepared to take on any of these candidates. What Jack Conway has shown over the course of his tenure as Attorney General is that he's willing to take on the issues that matter most to Kentuckians, and they're not Democratic ideas or Republican problems. These are problems that Kentuckians face, and I think that's why you're seeing his lead solidified in these early polls against all of the Republican candidates. So I think whoever the Republican Party nominates will be ready to take on in the fall. We'll be ready and willing and able to have a conversation about the future of the Commonwealth, and I think we'll be successful in the fall as well.
Mike, Hal Heiner was the clear front runner just a few weeks ago. Seems like his momentum has kind of bogged down a little bit down the stretch. What happened?
Well, this has been an up and down race. If you go back a year, you would say that James Comer was the odds-on favorite at that point. Heiner has done an effective job with his television commercials. He did get momentum. Some polls showed that he was in the lead. But then we had this unfortunate incident with the campaigns getting into personal attacks as opposed to attacks on the issues. And that's why we don't know where it stands right now, Neil. We don't know what the turnout's going to be. Is this going to be like 1991 when Larry Forgy was defeated by Larry Hopkins and we had about 30% of the Republicans turn out? Or is it going to be more like traditional races where we have 15 or 17%? Don't know the answer to that yet, but it's had ebbs and flows. Some people believe that because of the contact between Comer and Heiner, that Bevin can come up the middle like in a horse race. All that's to be determined. We'll know in a few hours.
Well, Mike, you mentioned, and Coleman, I want to bring you into this conversation. You mentioned that the Republican primary turned nasty here in the last few weeks. What impact will that have? Does that actually help bring Bevin out to the forefront? Coleman, let's start with you.
You know, I try not to get in the middle of Republican infighting, but I think it's an open recipe. I think not only has the unfortunate, and I do agree with Mike, how unfortunate the personal attacks have been on the Republican side. Not only does that, I think, add to tamp down voter what would otherwise, I think, be voter excitement to come out and participate in the primary. But you have low voter turnout already that was already going to make this a very close race to watch anyway. And so I think it's a perfect storm. I think it's one of the reasons why we won't know until much later this evening who the Republican nominee will be. But I think it serves as a lesson that, you know, folks are really dissatisfied when politicians cannot focus on the issues that matter most to them and instead engage in these personal attacks.
Mike?
Well, Neil, I think we have to wait to see what happens. I think the person who's going to win the Republican nomination tonight is the person who has the best ground game. I think all 3 all four candidates have put forward very good ideas. They agree generally on most of the issues. They understand the issues of the importance of coal in eastern Kentucky and jobs in eastern Kentucky. They're in agreement on that. They understand that Governor Beshear has gone too far with President Obama, and perhaps we need to roll back some of the medical areas that he's gotten into, that we need a stronger economy in Kentucky, that the American dream needs to be reignited in Kentucky. So there's many more agreements among the issues with these candidates, and it will come down to who has the best organization. Does Jamie Comer come through with the farm organization that he's developed over the few years? Will Bevan come through with the Tea Party support that he's built, particularly in the northern Kentucky area? Does Hal Heiner have a strong organization in Louisville and also in Lexington, where his running mate comes from? Or does Will T. Scott come through in eastern Kentucky? These are all issues that we'll see later this evening.
Gentlemen, while Republicans have been beating each other up, Jack Conway really hasn't had any strong opposition in the primary. His war chest should be full. He already has the name recognition. Does this type of primary help or hurt Republicans? Mike?
Well, it cuts both ways. We've been on both sides of this over the years. I remember some of the really strong Democrat primaries that we've had in the past. Governor Beshear was involved in one with John Y. Brown and other candidates. And you get a lot of name recognition from that. You get a lot of earned media because the press follows you around. And we've had that in a Republican primary this time. There's just been a lot of coverage. And some of it has been really good coverage, positive coverage on the issues. All that helps. Name recognition is part of it. The other side is that you also develop negative ratings during a position like this. I think Jack is vulnerable. I think he's vulnerable because he's going to be tied to a governor who has been so tied to the administration. I think potentially that you're going to hear Barack Obama's name used often in this campaign, and that Jack's going to be on the defensive trying to distance himself from the National Democrat Party.
Coleman, your thoughts?
Look, I think the race on the Republican side and how negative it's gotten, I don't know if that benefits Jack Conway and the Democratic Party ticket or not. What we've been focused on in lieu of having a divisive primary are the issues that matter most to the people of Kentucky. And I think where Mike is wrong and where there's a little bit of wishful thinking is that, Steve Beshear is a popular governor. This governor has tackled one of the greatest economic recessions since the Great Depression. We have a jobless rate that is lower than the national average. We have health care that has finally been extended to over 500,000 people. Most of who need it most are Neil, as you know, in your viewing area. We have a lot of momentum. We were just named one of the top places in the nation for economic development. So there's a lot of good going on in Kentucky, and the people of Kentucky know that. And so I think you will see Jack Conway put his arms around a lot of the policies of the Beshear administration. He will forge his own path, but the difference between the Democratic Party ticket and the Republican Party ticket is that Jack Conway and my party's ticket are looking to build on the accomplishments of the last 7.5 years, whereas you'll see a lot of Republicans running for the hills instead of embracing the good that's been done to really make Kentucky a leader in so many ways.
Well, gentlemen, thank you. We're going to hear again from you later tonight as the results come in. Mike Duncan in Washington, D.C., Coleman Eldridge in Frankfort. Gentlemen, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Neil. Thanks, Coleman.
Thank you so much. Good to see you both.
Thank you. We'll be back right after this.